The COVID-19 pandemic is accelerating digital transformation. But what does that digitalization actually mean? Let's have an exchange with Global Senior Vice President for Enterprise Group, Peter Marquera, and Cascadeo CEO, Jared Reimer. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us in the program. I want to start off with you, Peter, and this new Globe offering and your new partnership with engineering company Cascadeo. How did you find each other from Seattle to the Philippines and back?
Rico, we have one of the largest cloud operations in the Philippines, and Cascadeo was actually one of our key service providers. They have the highest level of expertise, premier status in the major cloud platforms like AWS and Google Cloud, quite expert also in Microsoft Azure. So for us, it was really a no-regret move to invest in them because we believe they have the core competencies for the future.
There are synergies between Cascadeo and Globe. And Jared, let me ask you, you're all the way in Seattle, Washington State. And when we hear the word cloud, then it's basically often associated with storage. And we know it's more than that. Can you explain it a bit more?
You bet. So cloud computing fundamentally is about business agility. So I'm going to use Zoom as a great example. Zoom went from something like 20 million daily active users to something like 300 million, and they did that on zero notice. In the old world, you would have had to plan months or years in advance, buying servers, leasing data center capacity, networking, a team of experts to deploy and operationalize that equipment. Cloud makes it possible to build systems that scale up and scale down depending on the actual workload. So something like Zoom would never have been possible in the pre-pandemic or pre-cloud era. And we were very fortunate to have cloud computing because I think the outcomes for businesses during the pandemic would have been far worse. So the timing was good.
You know, Jared, the word Zoom is now part of our vocabulary, and I'm sure eventually be part of the dictionary. But when it comes to a new system and a new technology, the question is, Jared, what really comes to mind is security. Is it safe to be in cloud computing?
So fundamentally, cloud computing is inherently more secure than conventional corporate IT. This is because the companies that you're building on, in the States, that would be typically Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. These are some of the largest, most powerful technology companies on the planet. They have effectively unlimited resources. They have the best expertise, the best infrastructure, software. They have direct lines of communication to the national security agencies of the world. So you're standing on the shoulders of the giants. Now, if you do cloud incorrectly, meaning bad architecture, bad operations, it can cause a disaster, just as is the case in a traditional data center. And it's different. So the way that you go about building and operating things in the cloud is not the same as what you might have done before. But if you do it right, it's vastly superior.
So, Peter, I'm an end user. And of course, as a consumer, I want to find out, are these new systems and new technologies affordable for us?
Yeah, I think, Rico, it's quite affordable in the sense that Jared spoke about scalability. So what happens is whether you're one user or 10,000 users, you only pay for what you need. In the old world, you would buy in advance a lot of hardware and overcapacitize. So it's a huge difference because it's much more optimal in the way you can operate.
And Peter, so many companies are now looking for ways to serve customers in this time of the COVID-19 pandemic, and many cloud-based solutions are out there as we know it. Of course, one size doesn't fit all, but Globe has been using the cloud since 2011. Tell us, what have you learned over the past decade in terms of the cloud?
I think for us, a big one has been agility. So you're able to deploy things faster. Things that used to take us 6 months, we can actually literally do in minutes. But of course, we are much more careful when we deploy. But you really you reduce your time to market quite significantly. And the way to optimize, like we were speaking about earlier, you just pay for what you need. And there's a lot of automated tools that, for sometimes you might have spikes or times where demand goes down. It also allows you to ramp up and down in an optimal way.
And briefly, Peter, there's so many new innovations in technology because of this pandemic. What do you think is the next step for digital solutions?
I think that what we've seen, for sure, that we saw that the ones who were more digital were least affected and in fact were able to recover sooner. But we also saw digital companies that were affected because of the supply chain had components that were not digital. So I think the way of the future is thinking more broadly end to end about your whole ecosystem. So we're going out to market and advising our clients in terms of platforms and ecosystems, thinking about the whole value chain.
So briefly, Jared, what is the future? What is the next step, the next generation of cloud computing?
So our general belief is that software as a service usually is the right answer for most applications. If you can't buy a finished SaaS solution, you can build on platforms. Like, for example, if you're going to build data analytics infrastructure and get good at artificial intelligence and machine learning, which are must-haves in the future for most businesses, building those on a cloud platform is really, really important. When you combine 5G, the Internet of Things, data from everywhere and everything all the time with data sciences and analytics, you get a business advantage that in the future, I think you can't live without. So the sooner you begin this process and develop these capabilities and this infrastructure, the more likely you are to be competitive in the post-pandemic world, because a lot of the changes in consumer behavior and the ways that we live and do business, those changes are going to stick, right? Zoom is not the only one. A lot of this is permanent. So getting good at this stuff now, I think, is an imperative for almost every company.
Jared and Peter, thank you so much for this technological exchange on the program.